Hi everyone, welcome to my class, and today we are going to talk about evolution, specifically evidence of evolution. But before we start, siguro define muna natin what is the meaning of the word evidence. Ang evidence, according to this definition, is the available body of facts or information indicating whether a belief or proposition is true or valid. Now, when you say available body of facts or information, it can be a photo, can be a document, it can be an audio recording, it can be a CCTV footage, or a video. So, yun ang mga evidence. Understanding evolution. So, if you look at the illustration here, you'll see different organisms. Question for thought. When you look at the history of Earth's development, it is accompanied by the appearance of different organisms of imaginable shape, size, and habitat. Now, these differences or variety of living organisms on Earth is what we call biological diversity. So, the question is, how did all these different organisms arise? Ba't nagkaroon ng ganitong naparaming magkakaibang mga organisms? And the second question would be, how are they related? So the question assumes that they are related. The question is how? Paano? Paano sila naging magkaka-connecta sa bawat isa? Let's proceed. So in your own words, describe what you think the theory of evolution means. Be ready to give that during our class. Let's proceed. This is Charles Darwin, and here are some information about his identity. Alright, so what is evolution? So the other name for evolution is change over time. The process by which modern organisms, or the organisms that we see now, have descended from ancient organisms. Descended means their origin can be traced back to these older organisms. Okay? That's descendant or descendant. So according to biologists and evolutionists, evolution can be explained and is supported by testable experiments or body of evidence that can confirm the truth that evolution really occurred. This is the name of his ship, HMS Beagle. This is a map that shows the voyage of HMS Beagle from Australia to Plymouth and then to Galapagos Islands. So if you notice, it's long. Took Darwin several years to finish the entire expedition. Darwin was able to collect a body of evidence that would support the theory about how life began. So, how do you think Darwin came up with this theory? So, paano niya naisip yun? Okay, let us now proceed to the main lesson, evidence of evolution. So, if you look at the key concept here, ang sabi rito, evidence of common ancestry among species comes from many sources. Evidence of evolution, comparing fossils with living organisms, reveals a pattern of gradual change from past to present. So, you have this illustration or photo of different skulls. These are layers of rocks. According to the geological principle of uniformitarianism, if you look at the different layers of rocks like this, the ones on top are the youngest organisms that got embedded or buried in this layer. And the one at the bottom, like in this case from A to F, the organisms found on A are the oldest. So if you look at this illustration from A to F, the oldest are those that are found in B. And the youngest are those that are found in the layer F. Yun. Pwede ba natin makita lahat? Hindi. The evolutionists would assert, hindi. There's no way we can find fossils of every species that ever lived. So, ito naman, this section would at least give you an idea that starting from this, you notice that there's a pattern of change from the past to the present. Alright, tuloy. So what is a fossil, by the way? A fossil is like an evidence of organisms that live in the past. Evidence for evolution in Darwin's time came from several sources. So these are actual fossils recovered or discovered by paleontologists or the experts in fossils. Yung sinasabi natin kanina, fossils in older layers are more primitive or older than those in the upper layers. Ito siya. Okay, tuloy tayo. Biogeography. So what is this? Study of the locations of organisms around the world. So if you look at these birds, these are actually birds. They're commonly known as flightless birds. They have wings but a bit non-functional because the body weight is something that the wings cannot support. So they can't fly. Eh, masyadong mabigat yung katawan para mabuhat pa ng pakpak. Ostrich in Africa, emu in Australia, and rhea in South America. So these are three different continents with three related species of birds. And another one came from the idea of Pangea. Movement of landforms can separate a group of organisms into two separate groups. Pangea, according to geology, is kind of like a supercontinent. Geologists assert that hundreds of millions of years ago, the Earth is landlocked. There's only one continent. It's known as a supercontinent. It's called Pangea. But geological movements caused this Pangea to get separated into groups. This is the present-day Earth as we know it now. If you notice, there are 7 continents. There used to be 1, but now there are 7. And as a result of this, the organisms who used to live in one supercontinent got separated. That is why you can find related species in 2 different countries. Yun. Or there are some species who got isolated. That's why there's what we call endemic organisms. Like, say, tarsier, sa ball lang siya. Ganon. Armadillo, giant anteater, pangolin. These are related organisms. But if you look at their locations, they are found in 4 different locations. Reason? Geological movement that caused Pangea to get separated into groups. Alright, the study of geography provides evidence of evolution. We call that biogeography. Island species most closely resemble nearest mainland species. Populations can show variation from one island to another. In other words, same species or same family but different genera. Parang yan, no? If you look at these 2 bird species, they are found in this place. Another evidence of evolution is embryology. Embryology is the study of the developmental stages of living organisms. So according to evolutionists, embryology can provide evidence for evolution. How does it work? See, number 1, identical larvae. Different adult body forms. A larvae is like a life stage of certain organisms like mosquito, may larval stage yan. Frogs have larval stages. And other forms of insects. Yeah, another one would be similar embryos. Diverse organisms. The embryos look similar, but the adult organisms are different. So since there are similarities, or there is similarity in embryos, or similarities in embryos, evolutionists would say, this is an evidence of evolution. Okay, so here are examples. You have an adult crab and an adult barnacle. So if you look at the larval form, it's similar. And evolutionists would use this as a proof or evidence that the embryological development of crabs and barnacles show that they are related. Yun ang ibig sabihin nun. Magkamag-anak to. Alright? Okay. Look at these embryos. This is a lizard, tortoise, pig, and human. At some point, there is similarity in their embryological development. If you look at this, of course, this is now entirely different because this is a human, this is a pig, this is a tortoise, and this is a lizard. But here and here, you can find striking similarities in terms of patterns and structure. So, yun, that's evidence number 2. Their evidence, anatomy. Scientists compare body structures of different species. You have humans, cats, whale, and a bat. Anatomy refers to the study of parts and structures. So what can you see? The ones that were highlighted, yellow, orange, call it homologous structures. Similar in structure, different in function. So yan. That's tibia and fibula. Yan. So these homologous structures provide an evidence for a common ancestor. The study of anatomy provides evidence of evolution. There. So this is another example. You have human hand, mole foot, and bat wings. Tingnan natin. Analogous. Take note of this. Analogous means different structure, similar function. When you say homologous, similar structure. Analogous structures are not evidence of a common ancestor. Fly wing and bat wing. The wings of a fly is for flying. The wings of bats are for flying. But if you look at the structure itself, it's different. So similarity in function lang yan, not in structure. Then another one, structural patterns are clues to the history of a species. One is vestigial structures. Remnants. When you say remnants, these are remains. They used these parts before but they no longer use it now or wala na siyang specific function sa ngayon. But in the older ancestry, may gamit siya. So, what's the use of this illustration? Ito, yung pakpak ng mga ostriches. Of course, if you look at ostriches, they don't fly. They run. But they have wings. That's why they are birds. If we're going to trace the history of birds, the ancestors of ostriches can fly. But eventually, during the evolutionary development of the ostriches, eventually, they no longer use their wings for flying. Bakit? Kasi nga ang bigat nila. Hindi kaya nung pakpak na yung katawan nila para lumipad. Kaya tawag yan, vestigial structures. Ito po yung mga vestigial structures daw natin. Upper impacted wisdom tooth and lower impacted wisdom tooth. Meron tayo niyan. No specific use now, but it's still there. Dati, ginagamit. No longer now. It's the same thing with this. Mga whales. Appendix nung tao and the pelvic and leg bones. So these are pelvic and leg bones. It's still present, the structure of a whale, but it has no use. Yan. So, ito yung common ancestor. New technology is furthering our understanding of evolution because the application of technology allowed scientists to study and develop new or find or discover new evidence that would support their claims. Yan. Fossils provide a record of evolution. Okay, so if you look at the picture here, these are paleontologists. This is a fossil remain. So, 40 million years ago, ito yung organism, 50 million years ago, and 52 million years ago. If we look at this, evolutionists would say there are similarities. Okay, so these are the ancestors of the modern organisms that we have now. That is why they use paleontology as an evidence to support evolutionary claims. And another one would be molecular and genetic evidence, support fossil and anatomical evidence. Of course, when we say genetics, it has something to do with the transmission or passing on of traits. It has something to do with DNA, mutation, adaptation. So if you look at this DNA sequence, whales and ungulates are very similar. So hippopotamus, if you look at the DNA sequence like this, you can find similarities. And according to evolutionists, this is an evidence that evolution took place. A humpback whale is a mammal. A hippopotamus is a mammal. What's the difference between the two? This one lives in the ocean or seas. This one lives on land. But they are both mammal. So, same class Mammalia. Different order. Then you have pseudogenes, sequences providing evidence of evolution. Pseudo means false. So you combine the two terms, it's false genes. No longer function. Carried along with functional DNA. So it's still a part of the DNA sequence, it's just that it is no longer functional. Bakit hindi siya functional? Well, the assumption is it used to be functional like millions of years ago, but the modern organisms now do not have, they have them, but it's no longer functional because of evolution. Because the organism needed to adapt to the environmental changes. That's why it was replaced by a functional DNA sequence. It can be clues to a common ancestor. Bakit? Bakit siya clues to a common ancestor? For the simple reason that andun siya, it used to be functional, So that means yung mga, let's say, millions of years ago, this organism has that. And that would prove that there's some sort of connection between the new and the old. Hox genes, it indicates a very distant common ancestor. Very distant means malayong malayo, but common ancestor. Hox genes control the development of specific structures. Hox genes can be found in many organisms. Protein comparisons or molecular fingerprinting reveals similarities among cell types of different organisms. Protein comparisons can be amino acid sequences. Okay, so this is an example of a microorganism that have Hox genes. Alright, evolution unites all fields of biology. What does that mean? It means that all fields of biology like anatomy, embryology, botany, zoology, and scientists from any fields contribute to the understanding of evolution. What does that mean? It means that, say, in botany, botanists would, botanical studies would show that even plants have a common ancestry. So the plants that we have now are related to the plants that have existed thousands of years ago and millions of years ago. Yun ang ibig sabihin yan, unites all fields of bio. The basic principles of evolution are used in many scientific fields like paleontology, analogous structure, homologous structure, yun. Yun ang ibig sabihin yan. Okay, so yan ang whale. So, another evidence, biochemistry. If you compare genes between species, ito yung sinasabi natin kanina. These are two different species of organisms, but if you look at the biochemical composition, it's similar. It's not entirely identical, but there are similarities in the DNA sequence, which means that these two different organisms are related. What unites them? Yung old ancestry nila. Okay. So, the question is, how similar is a human DNA to a monkey's DNA and the DNA of a banana? Oh, pinabahid na, 98% daw. And to a banana, human DNA is 50% similar to a banana DNA. Ano yung DNA sequence that unites? I'm done. So that is our lesson for today, evidence of evolution. The next topic is natural selection. If you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and write comments below. If you want to ask questions, you can ask me questions and I would try my best to answer your question. This is Curious Kamote saying goodbye, peace, bye-bye.